The coffee mug slipped from my fingers before I could process what Marcus had just said. It shattered against the hardwood floor of our his apartment now. I suppose, Dan, neither of us moved to clean it up. We just stood there, separated by 3 years of memories and one devastating truth. "Say that again?" I whispered, though I'd heard him perfectly the first time. Marcus ran his hand through his dark hair, a gesture I'd once found endearing now just seeming evasive. "Alex, I've been seeing someone else the past 4 months. For months. 1/3 of a year. While I'd been planning our future, he'd been building one with someone else, who—" The question burned my throat. Does it matter? Yes, it matters to me. He sighed, and I noticed how tired he looked. When had I stopped really seeing him? His name's Connor. We met at the firm, of course. The law firm where Marcus worked 80-hour weeks, where I'd encouraged him to make connections, to build his career. I'd been so supportive, so understanding of the late nights and weekend work sessions. "I'm sorry," Marcus continued, but his eyes were already distant, already moving toward whatever future he'd constructed without me. "You deserve to be someone's first choice, Alex. Not their comfortable option." The words were meant to sound kind, but they landed like stones in my chest. Is that what I'd been? Comfortable? "I need you to leave tonight," he said quietly. "Connor's lease is up, and he's moving in here." That's when something inside me finally fractured completely. Not rage, I almost wished it had been rage. Instead, it was a cold, hollow emptiness that spread through my chest like frost. Tonight I repeated numbly, "I'm sorry. I know it's sudden, but don't." I held up my hand. "Don't apologize and evict me in the same breath. Just don't." I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers and scrolled to Ethan's name. We'd been best friends since our sophomore year at the University of Washington, when we'd been randomly paired as lab partners in Biology 201. He was the one person I'd always been able to count on. The phone rang twice before his warm voice answered. "Alex, what's up? My voice cracked. "Can I come over? I need a place to stay." There was no hesitation. "Of course. Are you okay?" "What happened?" "I'll explain when I get there. I'll be waiting. Drive safe." Marcus had the decency to look away while I packed. I moved mechanically through his bedroom now, pulling my clothes from the closet, my books from the shelves. 3 years of cohabitation reduced to 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. I found myself staring at a photograph on the nightstand, Marcus and me at Pride 2 years ago. Both of us wearing rainbow face paint and laughing like we didn't have a care in the world. I'd been so certain then, so sure that we were forever. I left the photo where it was. The rain started as I loaded my car, because of course it did. Seattle weather had always had a flair for dramatic timing. By the time I pulled up to Ethan's apartment building in Capitol Hill, I was emotionally and physically drenched. Ethan must have been watching for me, because he appeared before I could even text that I'd arrived. He was wearing his usual off-duty look-worn jeans and a faded band t-shirt that stretched across his broad shoulders, and his dark hair was damp, like he'd just stepped out of the shower. "Come here," he said simply. Pulling me into his arms right there in the rain, I let myself break then, really break, for the first time since Marcus's confession. Ethan held me together while I fell apart, one hand on the back of my head, the other steady on my shoulder. "I've got you," he murmured. "You're safe now. I've got you." Inside his apartment, Ethan wrapped me in a blanket and made tea while I sat on his couch, still shivering. His place was so distinctly him-warm, earth tones, plants thriving on every available surface, framed photographs of national parks he'd visited. Ethan was a landscape photographer, the kind of artist who could capture the exact moment when sunlight turned ordinary scenery into something transcendent. Here, he pressed a mug into my hands, chamomile with honey, the way I always took it. The fact that he remembered such a small detail made my eyes burn with fresh tears. "Marcus cheated on me," I said, the words still surreal, "for 4 months, with someone from his firm." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice gentle. "I'm so sorry, Alex. He asked me to move out tonight," said the other guy's moving in. I laughed bitterly. Efficient, right? No wasted time between tenants. That's Ethan cut himself off, clearly editing whatever he wanted to say about Marcus. "That's incredibly unfair to you." I should have seen it coming. The late nights, the distance. I chose to believe him, to trust him. That's not a failing, Alex. That's called being a good partner. He failed, not you. I looked at Ethan, then really looked at him. His dark eyes were fierce with loyalty, his expression radiating the protective energy that had been a constant throughout our 10-year friendship. Ethan had always been attractive, objectively gorgeous, really, with his Mexican heritage giving him warm brown skin, high cheekbones, and thick black hair that constantly fell into his eyes. But I'd trained myself long ago not to think of him that way. He was my best friend, my safe person. That had to be enough. You can stay here as long as you need, Ethan continued. The spare room is yours. We'll figure everything else out tomorrow. Can't impose, Alex. He said my name firmly, catching my gaze. You're not imposing your family. Okay, family? The word settled something in my chest, even as my heart remained a bruised and tender thing. Okay, I whispered. Thank you. At night, I lay in Ethan's spare room, which smelled faintly of his sandalwood cologne and the lavender essential oils he used, and tried to process the implosion of my life. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. I really am sorry. You'll find someone who loves you the way you deserve. I turned my phone off and stared at the ceiling, listening to the rain against the windows and the quiet sounds of Ethan moving around in the other room. Tomorrow, I'd have to figure out how to rebuild my life from these scattered pieces. But tonight, I was just grateful not to be alone. The first week at Ethan's apartment passed in a blur of grief and logistics. I took sick days from my job at the Seattle Public Library, unable to face curious coworkers and their well-meaning questions. Instead, I spent my days on Ethan's couch, alternating between numbness and sudden waves of emotion that left me gasping. Ethan gave me space, but never left me isolated. He worked from home, editing photos in his office, but he'd check on me regularly, bringing me food, sitting with me during the worst moments, never pushing me to talk before I was ready. You don't have to take care of me, I told him one afternoon. I was embarrassed by my own neediness. He looked up from his laptop, his expression patient. I know I don't have to. I want to. That's what friends do, Alex. You're a really good friend, I said quietly. Something flickered across his face, too quick for me to read. You'd do the same for me, and I would have. A heartbeat. By the second week, I was ready to talk about it. Really talk. He sat on his balcony at sunset, the Space Needle visible in the distance, and I told him everything. Not just about Marcus's betrayal, but about the slow erosion of our relationship that I'd been too afraid to acknowledge. I think I knew, I admitted, watching the pink and orange sky. Not about the cheating specifically, but that we were falling apart. I just couldn't face it. Why not? Ethan asked gently. Because I struggled to articulate feelings I'd barely admitted to myself. Because if Marcus and I couldn't make it work, what did that say about me? We were supposed to be the success story. The couple that proved love could last. You're not responsible for someone else's choices, Alex. Marcus cheated because of his own issues, not because you weren't enough. Then why do I feel like I wasn't? Ethan was quiet for a moment, then reached over and took my hand. His palm was warm, calloused from his photography equipment, and achingly familiar. Because heartbreak makes us question everything about ourselves, he said. But listen to me, you are brilliant, kind, funny, and worthy of a love that doesn't make you doubt yourself. Marcus was an idiot for not seeing that. I squeezed his hand, drawing strength from his certainty. How did you get so wise? He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Practice. Too much practice. I realized then how little I'd asked about Ethan's own romantic life lately. I'd been so consumed with Marcus that I'd stopped being the kind of friend who checked in, who paid attention. What about you? I asked. Are you seeing anyone? No. The answer came quickly, maybe too quickly. I'm taking a break from dating. How long of a break? A while now. There was something in his tone that suggested this was a closed subject, so I didn't push. Instead, we sat in comfortable silence. Watching the sunset paint the Seattle skyline in shades of fire, my hand still in his. That night, I had the first dream. I woke at 3 a.m. with my heart racing. Fragments of images still vivid in my mind. Ethan's hands and my hair, his mouth on mine. The feeling of being completely safe and utterly consumed all at once. I lay there in the darkness, horrified at my subconscious. This was Ethan, my best friend, the person helping me heal from heartbreak. I wouldn't complicate our friendship. With misplaced emotions born from vulnerability and proximity, it was just transference, I told myself firmly. A psychological reaction to trauma. It didn't mean anything. It couldn't mean anything. By the third week, Ethan and I had fallen into a rhythm that felt both new and familiar. We discovered we were oddly compatible as roommates. He was an early riser who liked his mornings quiet, while I was more productive in the evenings. We both enjoyed cooking, so we started alternating dinner duties, and we respected each other's space while still making time to connect. It was everything my relationship with Marcus hadn't been. I realized easy, balanced, built on genuine consideration rather than obligation. I returned to work at the library, grateful for the routine and the distraction. My coworkers knew about the breakup. Gossip traveled fast in our small department, but they were kind about it, giving me space to readjust. You look better. My supervisor, Patricia, observed one afternoon. I don't mean that you looked bad before, but there's something different. I'm staying with a friend, I explained. It's helping. What I didn't say was that helping felt like an understatement. Living with Ethan was reminding me of who I'd been before Marcus, the version of myself I'd somehow lost along the way. I'd forgotten how much I loved lazy Sunday mornings with good coffee and better conversation. How I used to paint watercolors as a hobby, something Marcus had dismissed as cute but impractical. How I could be both introverted and social, needing alone time, but also craving deep connection. Ethan never made me feel like I had to be anything other than exactly who I was. The dreams continued, becoming more frequent and more vivid. Dreams where Ethan looked at me differently, where the careful distance we maintained dissolved into something heated and urgent. I'd wake up flushed and guilty, hyper-aware of him in the next room. I started going to therapy. My therapist, Dr. Chen, was a kind woman in her 50s who specialized in LGBTQ+ relationship issues. Not uncommon to develop feelings for someone who's supporting you through trauma, she explained during our second session, especially someone you already trust and care about. But I don't want to have these feelings, I protested. Ethan is my best friend. I can't risk losing him. Can't or afraid to. The question haunted me for days. 1 month after moving in, everything changed on a completely ordinary landscapes at a small but prestigious gallery in Pioneer Square. I'd planned to attend from the moment he told me about it. Wanting to support him the way he'd supported me, I dressed carefully, choosing dark jeans and a deep blue button-down that I knew brought out my eyes. When I emerged from my room, Ethan was in the kitchen, and he turned at the sound of my footsteps. His expression did something complicated, a flicker of surprise, then appreciation, then something carefully neutral. "You look great," he said, his voice slightly rough. "Thanks. So do you." And he did. Ethan had opted for black slacks and a gray shirt that somehow made his dark eyes even more striking. His hair was styled for once, swept back from his face, revealing the strong lines of his jaw and cheekbones. We'd seen each other dressed up before countless times over the years, but something about this moment felt different, charged. The gallery was packed when we arrived, the white walls showcasing Ethan's work beautifully. I wandered through the exhibit, seeing familiar places through his eyes: Mount Rainier at dawn, the Hoh rainforest in mist, the San Juan Islands under moody skies. "They're breathtaking," a voice said beside me. I turned to find a tall man with silver-streaked hair smiling at me. "Are you a friend of the artist?" "Best friend," I said, the words automatic. "These don't even do his work justice. You should see his private collection." The man's smile warmed. "I'm Marcus Chen, the gallery owner." "And you are?" "Alex." We shook hands. "The roommate who gets to live with these views every day." "Lucky man," Marcus said. And something in his tone made me wonder if he meant the artwork or something else? Ethan appeared then, sliding easily into conversation with the gallery owner. Watching him in his element, confident, articulate, passionate about his work, I felt something shift inside my chest. This wasn't just transference or rebound emotions. This was real. I was falling for my best friend. The realization terrified me after the gallery showing. We walked back to the car through the quiet streets of Pioneer Square. The night was unseasonably warm, and neither of us seemed in a hurry to end the evening. "That was amazing," I said. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan. Seeing all those people appreciate your work." "It was surreal," he admitted. "But having you there made it better. You've always believed in my photography, even when I doubted myself, 'cause you're talented. Really talented." We reached the car, but Ethan made no move to unlock it. Instead, he leaned against the driver's side door, his expression thoughtful in the streetlight. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly. "Anything. Are you happy? Living with me? I mean, really happy?" The question caught me off guard. Of course, why would you ask that? He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on something in the distance. "Because I need to know if I'm helping you heal or just providing a distraction." "You're helping," I said firmly. "Ethan, you've been the only thing keeping me together. But are you healing, or are you just existing?" The question cut deeper than he probably intended. Dr. Chen had asked me something similar just days before. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe both. Is that okay?" "It's okay," he said softly. "I just want to make sure I'm not enabling you to hide from moving forward." "Is that what you think I'm doing?" "No." He finally met my eyes. "I think you're exactly where you need to be. I just needed to check." There was something in his expression that made my heart race, a vulnerability I rarely saw from him. Before I could stop myself, I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. "Ethan, why did you really stop dating?" He stiffened slightly. "That's complicated, try me." He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because I was in love with someone I couldn't have. And it felt wrong to date other people when my heart wasn't available. My breath caught. "Who?" Ethan pushed off the car, creating distance between us. "It doesn't matter. Ancient history." But the way he wouldn't look at me told a different story. The pieces started falling into place, his lack of relationships over the past few years, the way he'd always made time for me even when I was with Marcus, the careful distance he maintained now that we were living together. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "How long have you been in love with someone you can't have?" He turned then, and the naked emotion in his eyes nearly destroyed me. 10 years, he said. "Give or take. Since college, since we became friends?" "Ethan, don't." He held up a hand. "Please don't, Alex. You're vulnerable right now, and you're grateful, and I understand that. But I can't. I can't hear you say something you don't mean just because you feel like you owe me. That's not it is." His voice was gentle but firm. "It's transference. Dr. Chen probably already explained it to you. You're healing from Marcus, and I'm here, and I'm safe. And your brain is looking for somewhere to redirect those feelings. But that's not real love, Alex. That's trauma response." The fact that he'd predicted my therapist's words so exactly should have alarmed me. Instead, it just confirmed what I'd been slowly realizing. Ethan understood me better than anyone ever had. "What if it's not just transference?" I asked. "Then we revisit this conversation in 6 months. When you've had time to really heal? When you're sure about what you want and why you want it?" He smiled sadly. "I've waited 10 years, Alex. I can wait a little longer to be certain. And if I am certain, then I'll be the happiest man alive." He unlocked the car, breaking the spell of the moment. "But right now, you need to focus on healing. And I need to focus on being your friend. That's what matters most." The weeks after our conversation at the gallery were strange. We didn't ignore what had been said, but we didn't address it directly either. Instead, we existed in a state of heightened awareness. Every casual touch and lingering look carrying new weight. I threw myself into therapy and self-discovery, Dr. Chen. helped me work through not just the Marcus breakup, but patterns I'd developed throughout my life, always putting others first, never voicing my needs, settling for relationships that looked good on paper, but left me empty. "You're a people pleaser," she observed, "which isn't inherently bad, but it becomes problematic when you lose yourself in the process. I don't want to be that person anymore." Then don't be. But give yourself grace. Change takes time. I started reclaiming hobbies I'd abandoned. My watercolors came out of storage, and I spent evenings painting at the kitchen table while Ethan edited photos. We existed in companionable silence. It's a kind that only comes from truly understanding another person. I also started dating again casually, at Ethan's encouragement. "You need to know what you want," he said when I hesitated. "And sometimes that means exploring your options." So I went on dates. Coffee with a librarian named James. Dinner with a tech worker named David. A movie with a teacher named Ryan. They were all nice men. Attractive, interesting, available, and I felt absolutely nothing for any of them. "How can you be so sure?" I asked Ethan one night, frustrated after another lukewarm date. "How do you know when it's real and not just comfortable?" He looked up from his laptop, his dark eyes thoughtful. "You know because you can't imagine your life without them in it. Not in a codependent way, but because they make everything better, the good days brighter, the bad days bearable. You know because being with them feels like coming home. Is that how you knew? With your person?" A soft smile crossed his face. "Yeah, that's how I knew. Do they know how you feel? They're starting to figure it out." Something in his tone made my heart skip. "And are they figuring out how they feel too?" "I hope so." He held my gaze. "But they need time, and I'm patient." The air between us felt electric, heavy with everything we weren't saying. "Ethan, your date tonight," he interrupted gently. "How was it really?" I sighed. He was great. Funny, smart, attractive. Everything I should want. But he wasn't you. The words hung in the air between us. Ethan closed his laptop slowly, giving me his full attention.
"Alex, I know."
6 months. You said I needed 6 months to be sure. I stood up, needing to move, needing to channel the energy coursing through me. "But Ethan, I'm sure. I've been sure for weeks now. This isn't rebound, and it's not transference, and it's not gratitude. Then what is it?" I stopped pacing, turned to face him. "It's recognizing that the person I've been searching for has been right here all along. It's understanding why nothing with Marcus ever felt quite right, because I was trying to build a life with someone when my heart already belonged to someone else." My voice broke, and suddenly Ethan was there, standing in front of me, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "It's what?" he asked softly. "It's love," I whispered. "Real, terrifying, all-consuming love. And I know it's complicated, and I know I might be risking the most important friendship of my life. But I won't pretend anymore." Ethan's hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. "You're sure? Absolutely certain?" "Yes. Then ask me again in 3 months." He smiled at my frustrated sound. "I'm not trying to torture you, Alex. I'm trying to protect both of us. Because when we do this and we will do this, I need to know you're ready. That you won't wake up one day and regret choosing me. I could never regret you, maybe not. But I need you to be as sure as I am. Can you give me that?" 3 more months? I wanted to argue, to push, to close the remaining distance between us and kiss him the way I'd been dreaming about for weeks. But the careful hope in his eyes stopped me. He'd waited 10 years. I could wait 3 more months. "Okay," I agreed. 3 months. But then no more waiting, Ethan. No more holding back. His smile was radiant. Deal. The 3 months that followed were both the longest and shortest of my life. Ethan and I existed in a space of acknowledged but unexplored attraction, dancing around each other with an awareness that made every moment feel significant. I continued therapy, digging deeper into understanding myself and what I wanted. Dr. Chen helped me recognize that my relationship with Marcus had been built on trying to meet external expectations rather than internal desires. You thought being in a relationship made you successful, she observed. But real success is being authentic to yourself, partnered or not. I'm learning that, I said. Finally learning it. I also reconciled with Marcus in a way. We met for coffee 3 months after the breakup, and I found that the anger and hurt had faded into something gentler. Acceptance. Maybe even gratitude. You look good, Marcus said, and he seemed to mean it. Happy. I am, I realized. Really happy. I'm glad. I know I handled everything terribly, but I never wanted to see you hurt. You couldn't have ended it without hurt, I said honestly. But I understand now. We were holding on to something that had stopped working because we were both afraid of being alone. Yeah, he smiled ruefully. How did you get so wise? Therapy. Lots of therapy. I stirred my coffee. And having the right support system? Your roommate? Yeah, Ethan. Something knowing flickered across Marcus's face. The photographer friend? The one you always talked about? That's him. Good, I always thought there was something there between you two. Even when we were together, the observation startled me. What do you mean? The way you lit up when you talked about him. The way you'd choose time with him over time with me, even if you didn't realize you were doing it. Marcus's expression was surprisingly kind. I think part of me always knew I was competing with a ghost. Someone who understood you in ways I never quite managed. It wasn't a competition, Marcus. Maybe not consciously. But Alex, the right person shouldn't have to compete at all. They should just fit. After our coffee, I walked through Pike Place Market, processing everything. Marcus had been writing and I fit in a way that felt effortless. But was that friendship? Or was it something more? I pulled out my phone and texted Ethan, "Can we talk tonight?" Important. His response came immediately, of course. I'll make dinner. That evening, Ethan made my favorite meal, homemade chicken enchiladas with all the fixings. We ate on the balcony, watching the sun set over the city skyline, and I gathered my courage. I saw Marcus today, I began. Ethan's fork paused halfway to his mouth. How did that go? Better than expected. We talked, really talked, and I realized something. I took a breath. He said he always felt like he was competing with you for my attention. Even when we were together. I'm sorry. I never meant to. No. I reached across the table, taking his hand. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that he was right. There was always something between us, Ethan. Even when I was too blind or too scared to see it. Ethan's fingers tightened around mine. Alex. It's been almost 4 months since I moved in. Since my life fell apart and you put it back together, and I know we agreed to wait 3 months before revisiting this conversation, but I can't wait anymore. Not because I'm impatient, but because I'm certain that I love you. The words came out steadier than I expected. Not as a rebound, not as a friend, not as gratitude for helping me through a hard time. I love you because you're brilliant and kind and talented, and you really see mean a way no one else ever has. I love you because every morning I wake up grateful that you're in my life. Every night I fall asleep wishing you were closer. I love you because when I imagine my future, you're in every version of it. Ethan's eyes were bright, his expression unguarded in a way I'd never seen before. You're sure? Absolutely, completely sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Stood up, pulling me with him, his hands framing my face with a gentleness that made my chest ache. I've loved you since the day you argued with Professor Henderson about the ethics of genetic modification. You were so passionate, so convinced you were right, and I just thought there. That's the person I want to spend my life knowing. That was 10 years ago, I whispered. 10 years, 3 months, and 17 days, he said. But who's counting? Then he kissed me, and it was like every cliché, and none of them all at once. Fireworks, and coming home. Excitement and safety. Everything I'd been searching for in every wrong place. Finally found in the most right one, when we finally pulled apart, both breathless. Ethan rested his forehead against mine. Terrified, he admitted. What if we ruin our friendship? What if we won't? I said firmly. Because we're not just jumping into this blindly. We've built 10 years of foundation. Ethan. We know each other's worst traits and annoying habits, and still choose each other. That's not something to be afraid of. It's something to build on. You really have been going to therapy, he said with a soft laugh. Best decision I ever made. Second only to calling you that night in the rain. He kissed me again. Slower this time, savoring it. His hands slid into my hair and I wrapped my arms around his waist, and everything felt simultaneously brand new and deeply familiar. Stay with me tonight, he murmured against my lips. Not in the spare room. With me? Are you sure? We don't have to rush, Alex. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. I've waited 10 years. I'm not rushing. I'm finally moving forward. That night changed everything. We took our time, learning each other in ways we'd never allowed ourselves before. Ethan was patient and attentive, mapping every reaction, every place that made me gasp or shiver. And I discovered that all those dreams hadn't been just my imagination. Reality was infinitely better. Afterward, we lay tangled together in his bed, the city lights creating patterns on the ceiling through the window. I can't believe we waited so long for this, I said, tracing lazy patterns on his chest. Good things are worth waiting for. We pressed a kiss to my hair. And this is the best thing I've ever had. Even better than your gallery showing? Even better than that. Shifted to look at me. Though I'm keeping you out of any future showings? You're too distracting, I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. I'll try to contain my disruptive presence, please don't. I kind of love your disruptive presence. Over the following weeks, we navigated our new reality with a care that came from valuing what we had. We didn't hide our relationship from friends and family. There was no reason to. But we also didn't rush to label or define it beyond what felt right to us. My parents were thrilled when I told them, my mother immediately pointing out that she'd known all along. The way he looked at you at Christmas, she said. I told your father, didn't I? That boy is in love with our son. Even my coworkers at the library noticed the change, commenting on how much happier I seemed. Heartbreak suits you, Patricia joked, in that it led you somewhere better. The only moment of tension came when Ethan's sister Maria visited from Portland. She pulled me aside while Ethan was making dinner, her expression serious. I need to know your intentions, she said bluntly.
Right.
My intentions? With my brother? He's been in love with you forever, Alex. And I watched him pretend to be fine while you were with Marcus. Watched him keep himself available, just in case you ever notice. Continue. 8:36, I'm him. So I need to know, are you all in, or are you just trying out something new? Her protectiveness would have been intimidating if it hadn't been so clearly rooted in love. I'm all in, I said firmly. I love your brother, Maria. Not as a rebound, not as an experiment. I love him because he's the best person I know, and being with him feels like finally finding where I belong. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Good, because if you hurt him, I know where you live. I fully expect nothing less. By 6 months, we'd fully merged our lives. The spare room became a home office. My belongings integrated throughout the apartment until it was impossible to tell which items were originally whose. We fell into routines that felt both domestic and passionate: Saturday morning farmers market trips, Sunday afternoon photo walks, weeknight dinners where we'd talk for hours about everything and nothing, but we also maintained our independence. Recognizing that had been part of what failed in my relationship with Marcus. Ethan still took solo photography trips, and I still had my watercolor classes and library book club. We were together, but we were also still ourselves 1 year after my breakup with Marcus. Ethan and I returned to the gallery where everything had shifted. This time, he had a solo show featuring a new series, Light After Dark. A collection of photos documenting the Pacific Northwest through all seasons, from the deepest winter to the brightest summer. But there was one photo that stopped me in my tracks. It was me, sitting at our kitchen table with watercolor paint spread out. Late afternoon light streaming through the window and catching in my hair. I was looking down at my work, completely absorbed, and the expression on my face was one of pure contentment.
When did you take this?
I asked, finding Ethan in conversation with a potential buyer. He excused himself and came to stand beside me. About 3 months after you moved in. You'd just started painting again. And you had this look on your face like you'd rediscovered something precious you'd lost. You captured it perfectly. It's my favorite photo I've ever taken. Slipped his hand into mine. Because it's the moment I knew you were going to be okay, that we were going to be okay. I want to buy it, I said impulsively. He laughed. You don't have to buy it. It's yours, Ethan. This could sell for it's not for sale. He pulled me closer. Some things are priceless. Later that evening after the showing, we walked along the waterfront. The night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights. And I felt overwhelmingly grateful for the path that had led me here. Can I tell you something? I asked, always. I used to think my life was over when Marcus left. Like I'd lost my chance at happiness, at building something meaningful. I stopped, turning to face him. But now I realize that wasn't my life ending. It was just clearing space for my real life to begin. Ethan pulled me close, his arms secure around my waist. I'm so glad your real life includes me, includes you. Ethan, you are my real life. You're the person I want to build everything with, the adventures and the ordinary moments, the challenges and the celebrations. You're it for me. Is this your way of asking me something? He teased, but his voice was thick with emotion. Maybe. I pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. Or maybe I'm just stating facts. We've been together for 8 months now, and I've never been more certain of anything. So yes, I'm asking, or telling, really, that I want forever with you. Forever sounds perfect. He kissed me softly. Though fair warning, forever with me includes really early morning, photo shoots, and an obsessive need to organize my equipment. And forever with me includes librarial level, organization of everything, and a tendency to cry at Pixar. Movies, I can work with that.
Oh, we
Stood there on the waterfront, wrapped in each other, and I marveled at how completely my life had transformed. A year ago, I'd been standing in the rain, heartbroken and lost. Now I was standing under the stars, completely found. The apartment was chaos in the best way, moving boxes everywhere, furniture wrapped and labeled. 2 years of combined life, being packed up for our next adventure. Found your missing paintbrush? Ethan called from the office. Emerging with the brush I'd been searching for all morning. You're a lifesaver. I added it to the box marked art supplies and sealed it up. How's your equipment looking? All packed and ready to go. We were moving not just to a new apartment, but to a house. A small bungalow in Ballard with a yard for the dog we were planning to adopt, a proper photography studio for Ethan, and a sunroom that would be perfect for my painting. It felt like a massive step, but also like the most natural progression in the world. Having second thoughts? Ethan asked, reading my expression. Not even close. Just thinking about everything that had to happen to get us here. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. Grateful for the journey? Every painful, beautiful moment of it. I turned in his arms, though I could have done without the dramatic rain scene. Very cliché. Hey, that dramatic rain scene led to our first night as roommates. I'd say it was pretty perfect. Only you would find my heartbreak romantic. Find you romantic. The heartbreak was just the unfortunate catalyst that finally got you to notice what was right in front of you. I kissed him, slow and deep, pouring 2 years of love and certainty into it. When we pulled apart, I rested my forehead against his. My roommate changed my life after my breakup, I said softly, echoing the title that had brought us to this moment. Best accidental roommate situation ever. Accidental? He raised an eyebrow. Alex, I've had that spare room ready for you for 3 years. Just in case you did not. I absolutely did. Kept it clean, kept it available. Hoped someday you'd need it. The casual revelation of how long he'd been preparing for this for us made my chest tight with emotion. I love you, I said. Because sometimes the simplest words carried the most truth. I love you too. Now come on, we have a house to move into and a life to build. And as we loaded the last boxes into the truck, the Seattle skyline, visible in the distance, I thought about the message I'd want to give to that version of myself standing in the rain. 2 years ago, your life isn't over. It's just beginning. And it's going to be more beautiful than you ever imagined. Because sometimes, The worst breakup of your life leads you to the best love of your life. Sometimes, your roommate changes everything, and sometimes, the person you've been searching for has been there all along, waiting patiently for you to find your way home.